Hello everyone, I hope you're doing very well. My name is Tala and today I'm going to show you how to push your local project to a remote GitHub repository in just a few simple steps. So let's dive in. Alright, so what you need to get started are a few things. So first of all, you need an IDE of your choice with your project open. Here I'm using VS Code, but you can use whatever you want. You need to have Git installed. And you also need a GitHub account or whatever tool you're using. You could use Bitbucket. I'm using GitHub here. So if you don't have all of those tools, go set yourself up and come back and follow with me. But if you do, essentially what we want to do is push our existing project that is on our local IDE, and we want to push it remotely to our GitHub account or the tool that we're using. And to do that, the main step that we have to do is create a link between our local repository that only we can access and create a link to the remote repository that we will create to be able to push changes to our remote repository every time we make change. And to do that, the first step what we need to do is go into our GitHub account. Here I'm logged in and I'm in my repositories section. What I want to do is create a repository that is remote. It's going to be completely empty. There will be nothing in it. I would just want to create it to be able to create a link to our my local repository. So here my project is opened up. It's called Hello World. So repository name will essentially be the name of the project as well. So I'm going to just call it Hello World. And that is it. I'm not going to go into anything else. I just can create the repository right away. And that's what I'm going to do. And as soon as the repository is created, it will show you all the details of the repository itself. There's nothing in it right now, so that's why it shows nothing. But as you can see here, we have a little link. And that's what we will use to create the link from our local to our remote repository. So meanwhile, we need to set some things up in our local as well. Right now we have a project, right? But it's not a Git repository itself. It's just a project. But we need to initialize a Git repository that is just local to be able to push our changes. Otherwise, it doesn't have the capabilities to push changes or anything that Git can. And to do that, we need to initialize a Git repository. So that's what I'm going to do. And that is it. This is just a command that you need to do. As you can see here, we have an output saying that we initialize an empty Git repository in our path. And that's it for initializing the Git repository. Now we can do all the things that Git allows us to do. The next step is when you want to push changes or a whole project, you want to be able to also specify which files you want to add to your remote repository. And to do that, you will need to make a simple command to specify the files that you want to add. What I mean by that is that here you have only one file called hello.py, but maybe in your project you have multiple files and you want to be able to add either all of them or some of them. And that is why I'm going to add hello.py. And this is a simple command. You just specify which files you want to add. And then this is called a staging area. So our git add essentially added this file hello.py to our staging area. What is a staging area? A staging area is just a kind of a place where you say, these files, I want to be able to push them. And they will be added to the staging area, and we will keep track of all the files that you added to the staging area so that when you push your changes, we only push these files, right? Or all the files, depending on what you added in the staging area. And then the next thing that we have to do is actually make a commit. A commit is an action that you can do to show what changes you made and why you made them, because it is also accompanied by a message where you specify exactly the changes that you made. So for example, here, the changes that I made was initializing a hello file saying hello world. So I would specify in my commit, I added this hello file and I initialized it with hello world. Essentially, I printed hello world. And this is what a commit is, so that when it's pushed to your remote repository, you will be able to see all of the changes that you've made in the past with all your commits, because you will be able to see all the commits that you've made, and you will probably make multiple ones. So I'm going to commit and you don't need to specify which files, by the way. The commit will just assume all the files in the staging area will be in the commit. So here I'm going to commit my hello.py file. I'm going to say initialize hello file. This is it. This is very simple. And that is it. As you can see here, we have one file change and one insertion. If we do git status, the git status gives us the status of our Git repository and gives us details. Here we have nothing to commit, working tree clean. This means that all the files that were in the staging area were committed and that all the changes that you made are tracked and they're good. So you're good to go to be able to push your changes. All right, now we go to the main step, which is creating the link between your local and your remote. To do that, you're going to take this link and copy it. It's going to be very simple. Essentially, what we want to do is to add a remote origin so that when you push your files, it knows where to push them. We want to push them to, this is the link of the repository here. So we want to push them to the link of your repository so that it's able to make the changes to the right repository and not, not be lost and not knowing where to push the changes. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a origin with a simple command, and we're just going to very simply paste the link of your GitHub repository. So this is a simple command saying that I want to add a remote origin, and this will be it, so that when I push, and I call it origin, and when I will push my changes to origin, this is where I want to push my changes. All right, and that is it. Now you're good. And the next step is to actually push your changes. And I will do this. Now, before I press this command, I want to explain this to you really quickly, just so you get an idea of what this means. We want to push our changes to origin. Okay, before doing that, actually, let me show you something. If we do git branch here, we see main. What is a branch? A branch is kind of, if we see it as a tree has multiple branches, right? When you create a repository, it's kind of like a tree with only one branch. So as soon as you initialize the repository, it will create only one branch called main or sometimes master. And that's where you will push all your changes. But also in the future, you may want to create new branches to be able to work on the same projects, but with different versions or with different people as well, so that there's one main the project is on the main branch and stays untouched, and all the other branches can work on different versions without disturbing the main branch. And so this is where we want to push our project right now. It's on the main branch because we only have one. And yep. So also, I'm saying origin here. The reason I'm saying origin here is that because I called the remote origin. This is where you call it. I could have called it cat or dog. It wouldn't have mattered. I just called it origin here. And I'm specifying the branch main. So now what it's going to do is trying to authenticate me to GitHub. So as you can see here, it says the extension GitHub wants to sign in using GitHub. You want to allow this, and here what it will do is that it will authenticate you. Since I'm already logged in my GitHub account, it doesn't take a long time, and that is it. It has been authenticated to be able to, because you can't push to a repository if it's not yours or you're not allowed to push on it. And that is it. Now it says that there's a new branch called main. Let's go and see here, right? We have our project Hello World. Let's refresh that and see what pops up. Now, as you can see, we have our hello.py file, and that is done. We pushed our project on our remote repository, and that's it. It's very simple. There are a lot of ways to do this, but I feel like this is a simple way to follow as a beginner, and it's not too complicated. It doesn't take a lot of time. And then when you want to make more changes and you want to push them as well, you don't have to redo all these steps. The only things that you have to do is add your files to the staging area, commit them, and push them. And it's very simple. Now we set the upstream to origin, so now you can just do git push instead of all this command right here. And that is it. If you want me to go into more details, let me know and I'd be happy to do it.